The war goat had kicked 3 men unconscious in the past month alone. So when Owen Thatcher walked into Lyssa Emory's paddock with a milking pail and a grin that could charm birds from trees, she folded her arms across her chest and waited for the inevitable retreat. "You are absolutely serious," she said, watching him circle the massive creature with the casual interest of someone examining vegetables at market. The goat, a mottled gray beast named Ironhide who stood nearly 4 feet at the shoulder and weighed more than most ponies, tracked Owen's movement with yellow eyes that promised violence. His curved horns had scored deep grooves in the oak fence posts, and the scars along his flanks told stories of battles Lyssa herself had witnessed during her 5 years as a handler in the border conflicts. "Completely serious," Owen said, setting the pail down and rolling up his sleeves. The autumn sun caught the dust motes in the paddock air, turning everything golden and lazy despite the tension thrumming through Ironhide's muscles. "You said I could not do it. I say I can. The terms are clear enough. I milk your war goat. I win your Sundays for the season. 1 day a week, spent however I choose." Lyssa tilted her head, her dark braids sliding over one green shoulder. She wore a simple linen shirt and work trousers, practical clothing for the small homestead she had claimed after mustering out 8 months ago. Her tusks, small and neat, showed briefly as she smiled. "And when you fail, when Ironhide breaks your ribs or your arm or possibly your thick skull, then I owe you 3 Sundays of labor," Owen said. "Splitting wood, mending fences, whatever you need, but I will not fail." She studied him properly then. This human farmhand who had appeared 4 weeks ago to work the harvest at the Brenner farm 2 miles down the valley road. He was tall but not unusually so, built lean and strong from years of physical work, with brown hair that fell into his eyes and a face that was more friendly than handsome. He had stopped by her place twice before, once to ask directions to the mill, and once to return a hammer he claimed had been hers, but which she suspected he had bought just to have an excuse to visit. Both times he had been polite, cheerful, and thoroughly shameless in his admiration of her, which was so rare from humans that she had not known quite what to do with it. "Why do you want my Sundays?" she asked. Owen picked up the pail again, weighing it in one hand. "Because you never leave this place. You work every day from dawn until dark, and you speak to no one unless they speak to you first. Because I have been here a month, and I have seen you smile exactly 3 times, and I would like to discover what might make it 4. Because, Lyssa, you are the most fascinating person in this valley, and I would very much like to know you better, but you have made it clear you have no time for visitors or foolishness. So I am making a wager instead." Heat crept up her neck, surprising her. She had been called fearsome, capable, savage, monstrous. Fascinating was new. "That is ridiculous." "Probably," he agreed. "Do we have a bet or not?" Ironhide snorted, pawing the ground. The goat had not been milked since before the demobilization, when Lyssa had still been assigned to a forward camp, and the handlers had kept the war beasts producing to supplement rations. Here, alone, she simply let him graze and rest. She had been considering selling him to another veteran who was starting a breeding program, but she had not been able to bring herself to do it yet. Ironhide had carried her supplies through 3 campaigns. He had stood steady when arrows fell like rain. He had charged enemy lines on her signal and never once faltered. He was also, she had to admit, an absolute bastard to anyone he did not know. "We have a bet," she said. Owen's grin widened. He approached Ironhide directly, no hesitation, no fierce smell that animals could sense. The goat's ears flicked forward. Lyssa tensed, ready to intervene if necessary, though she was not entirely sure what she could do if Ironhide decided to pulverize this ridiculous man. Then Owen started singing. His voice was clear and surprisingly good, a rolling melody in a language Lyssa did not immediately recognize. Not common, not the clipped military speech she had learned. Something older, perhaps, with round vowel sounds and a rhythm like water over stones. He sang as he moved, circling Ironhide twice, letting the goat track him and learn his shape. The song had no words she could distinguish, just sounds that flowed together, rising and falling in gentle waves. Ironhide's ears swiveled, following the sound. His head lowered slightly, no longer locked in aggressive vigilance. Owen kept singing as he reached out, slow and steady, and rested one hand on Ironhide's shoulder. The goat shuddered but did not strike. Owen's fingers traced along the corsehair, finding the places handlers learned to soothe, and all the while his voice continued, soft now, almost a lullaby. He moved to Ironhide's flank, still singing, and positioned the pail. Lyssa watched, barely breathing, as Owen began to milk her war goat. Ironhide stood perfectly still, ears tilted back toward the singing man, eyes half closed in an expression that might almost have been contentment. Owen's hands worked steadily, the milk hitting the pail in rhythmic streams, and his song never wavered. It wrapped around them both, man and beast, like a spell of peace in the golden autumn afternoon. When the pail was half full, Owen stepped back, still singing. He picked up the bucket, brought it to where Lyssa stood frozen by the fence, and set it at her feet. Then finally, he let the song fade into silence. Ironhide shook himself and walked calmly to the far end of the paddock to resume grazing. "What?" Lyssa said slowly. "Was that?" Owen rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly looking younger. "Just an old song my grandmother taught me. She raised goats and sheep her whole life. Said they like music better than words, and she was usually right. I suppose war goats are not so different from regular ones in that respect." Lyssa looked down at the milk, then back at him. "You learned to milk while singing from your grandmother?" "Among other things." He met her eyes, and his smile had softened into something more genuine, less performance. "So, Sunday, tomorrow in fact, I will be here at noon if that suits you." "I have work to do," she protested, but it was weak and they both knew it. "Then we will work together first, and afterward we will do something that is not work." He touched 2 fingers to his forehead in a casual salute. "Good day, Lyssa Emory. Enjoy the milk." He walked away whistling, the same melody he had sung, and Lyssa stood in her paddock beside a pail of fresh goat milk, feeling as though the world had tilted sideways when she was not paying attention. Ironhide, the bastard, looked remarkably pleased with himself. The next day, Sunday, dawned clear and cool with the particular brightness of early autumn when the leaves had just begun to turn. Lyssa woke before dawn out of habit, fed Ironhide and her 2 chickens, mucked out the small stable, mended a weak spot in the fence, and reorganized her tool shed. By the time noon approached, she had run out of urgent tasks and was seriously considering digging a new drainage ditch just to avoid standing idle. Owen arrived exactly on time, riding a borrowed horse and carrying a pack that clinked suspiciously. "Good afternoon," he called, swinging down from the saddle with easy grace. "I brought lunch." "I have not agreed to lunch," Lyssa said, but she walked over anyway, wiping her hands on her trousers. She had changed clothes twice that morning before settling on the same work outfit she always wore, then felt foolish about the entire exercise. "You agreed to Sunday," Owen said. "I choose to spend it eating lunch with you, unless the bet was dishonestly made." He raised an eyebrow, playful, and she found herself fighting a smile. The bet was honest. "Then come sit with me." He unpacked his supplies on the flat stone near her well, revealing bread, cheese, early apples, and a bottle of what turned out to be decent cider. The Brenners are generous with their workers, he explained, seeing her expression. And I saved my coin all summer for this. For lunch, Lyssa sat, feeling awkward. She was not accustomed to being served, to being considered. In the army, she had eaten rations standing up or while marching. Before that, in her childhood village, meals had been communal and chaotic, everyone grabbing what they could. For courting you, Owen said simply, slicing the bread with a knife from his belt. I am not a rich man, Lyssa, and I will not pretend otherwise. But I am skilled at making something good from simple things, and I wanted to share that with you. She accepted the bread and cheese he offered, not trusting herself to speak. The food was indeed simple, but he had chosen well. The bread was fresh, the cheese sharp and creamy, the apples crisp. They ate in companionable silence for a while, the sun warm on their shoulders and the valley spread out below her small homestead in a patchwork of harvested fields and turning forest. You are allowed to ask me questions, Owen said eventually. That is generally how people become acquainted. I do not know what to ask, Lyssa admitted. Then I will ask you instead. How did you end up with a war goat on a homestead in the middle of nowhere? She traced a finger along the rim of her cup. Ironhide was mine during the border conflicts. 5 years I served, and he was with me for the last 3. When they demobilized us, they offered to buy the animals back for slaughter or breeding. I could not let him go to either, so I claimed my veteran's land grant and brought him here instead. That was kind. That was selfish, she corrected. He is the only thing I have from those years that I do not wish to forget. Owen considered this, his expression thoughtful rather than pitying, which she appreciated. What do you wish to forget? The rest of it. The fighting, the fear, the watching people die for borders that shifted back and forth like tides. I am good at handling beasts, good at logistics, good at staying calm when everything is on fire. None of that matters here in peacetime. I do not know what does matter instead, so I work. I keep busy, I try to build something that will last. And what are you building? He asked gently. Lyssa gestured at the homestead, the small house she had repaired herself, the paddock and the garden patch and the shed. This, something mine, something peaceful. I do not know if I am any good at peace, but I am trying to learn. Owen reached over and covered her hand with his briefly, the touch warm and solid. I think you are doing remarkably well. She looked at him, really looked, and saw no mockery or condescension, only honest admiration. It made her chest ache in a way she could not name. What about you? Why are you here, working harvest for the Brenners instead of on your own land? Saving for it, he said, releasing her hand and leaning back on his elbows. I have worked farms from here to the eastern valleys for 6 years now. I save every copper I can spare, and I am close. Another season, maybe 2, and I will have enough to lease a good plot and buy my own stock. I want to raise sheep and goats mostly, a few pigs, maybe some cattle if I can manage it. I am good with animals, better than I am with crops, and I want to build something that fits that. Why not stay in one place and work your way up? She asked. I tried that. Worked for a man who promised me a share of his land if I stayed 5 years. At the end of 5 years, he hired his nephew instead and gave me 2 weeks severance. I learned then that I could only rely on myself, on what I could earn and save and claim outright. He smiled, but there was an edge to it. So I move where the work is good and the pay is fair, and I save and I wait. That sounds lonely. It is, he agreed. Which is why, when I saw a beautiful orc woman with sad eyes and a war goat, I thought perhaps I had found someone who might understand what it is like to be building a life alone. Lyssa's breath caught. I am not beautiful. I am an orc. You are both, Owen said, sitting up again to face her properly. You are strong and graceful, and you move like a dancer when you work. Your eyes are the color of amber in sunlight. You are careful with your animals and your land, and you do not waste words, which I appreciate because so many people do. You are also an orc, yes, with green skin and tusks, and I find all of that beautiful together. Does that truly surprise you? It did. It shocked her, in fact, down to her bones. She had been admired for her competence, respected for her service, valued for her utility. She had never been called beautiful, and certainly not with such casual sincerity as though it were simply obvious fact. Yes, she whispered. Owen smiled, gentle and a little sad. Then I am glad I won the bet. We have Sundays now to correct that. They spent the rest of that afternoon walking her property line. Owen had a good eye for land, and he pointed out places where she could expand her garden, where a second paddock might make sense, where the drainage could be improved. He asked her questions about her plans and listened to her answers with complete attention. By the time the sun began to sink toward the western hills, Lyssa realized she had talked more in one afternoon than she had in the previous month. I should go, Owen said as the light turned golden. The Brenners expect me back for supper, and it is a good ride. Thank you, Lyssa said. For today. Next Sunday, Owen said, mounting his borrowed horse. I will come earlier. We will get your work done together, and then I want to show you the river bend. There is a place where the beavers have built, and it is worth seeing. I have seen beavers, Lyssa said, but she was smiling. Not with me. You have not. He touched his forehead in that same casual salute and rode away, singing under his breath. Lyssa stood in her doorway until the sound of hoofbeats faded, then went inside feeling lighter than she had in months. The second Sunday, Owen arrived mid-morning with a scythe over his shoulder. He helped her cut the last of her hay without being asked, working in easy tandem as though they had done this for years. He was strong and steady, and he sang while he worked, switching between cheerful traveling songs and the wordless melody he had used on Ironhide. Lyssa found herself humming along without quite meaning to. They ate a quick lunch of leftover stew and bread. Then Owen kept his promise and led her down through the wooded valley to the river. The beaver dam was impressive, a feat of engineering that had created a still pond reflecting the autumn colors like a mirror. They sat on a fallen log at the water's edge and watched the beavers work, industrious and unconcerned with their audience. My grandmother used to say beavers were proof that hard work and stubbornness could reshape the world, Owen said, tossing a pebble into the water. I always liked that idea. Your grandmother sounds wise, Lyssa said. She was. Raised me after my parents died. Fever took them both when I was 8. He said it matter-of-factly, old grief rather than fresh. She taught me animals and singing and how to make a home anywhere. She died 5 years ago, and I have been working toward my own land ever since. I think she would have liked you. Why? Because you are like her, practical, strong, unimpressed by nonsense. She had no patience for people who talked more than they worked. He glanced at Lyssa, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. She also had a soft spot for lost things, strays, injured animals, people down on their luck. She would have seen that in you too. I am not lost, Lyssa protested. No. You left the only life you knew, came to a place where you have no friends or family, and you spend all your time working alone. That sounds a little lost to me. She wanted to argue, but the words stuck in her throat because he was right. She had been so focused on building her homestead, on proving she could survive in peacetime, that she had not stopped to consider whether she was actually living or simply existing. What do I do about it? She asked quietly. Owen reached over and took her hand, lacing their fingers together. His palm was calloused from work, warm and solid. You let someone in. You let yourself rest sometimes. You remember that being strong does not mean being alone. Lyssa looked down at their joined hands, green and tan twined together. It should have felt strange or wrong, an orc and a human, but it just felt right. I do not know how to do that. Then we will figure it out together, Owen said. That is what these Sundays are for. They stayed by the river until twilight, talking and watching the beavers, and when Owen finally rode away, Lyssa held the memory of his hand in hers like a treasure. The third Sunday, it rained. Owen arrived soaked and laughing, and they spent the day inside her small house, reorganizing her pantry and teaching each other card games. Owen taught her a complicated betting game involving strategy and bluffing. Lyssa taught him a simple matching game soldiers played in camp. They argued cheerfully over the rules, made lunch together in her cramped kitchen, and dried their clothes by the fire while wrapped in blankets. It was domestic and easy, and Lyssa caught herself imagining this as her life, not just one day a week but all of them. The fourth Sunday, Owen brought his fiddle. He played while she finished mending harness, and the music filled her small homestead with warmth. Ironhide came to the fence to listen, as docile as a lamb, and Lyssa laughed at the absurdity of it all. The fifth Sunday, they rode together to the village market, 3 miles down the valley. Lyssa had avoided the market since settling here, unwilling to face the stares and whispers that followed orcs in human settlements. But Owen walked beside her with easy confidence, greeting the vendors by name, introducing her as his friend without hesitation or shame. A few people stared. Most simply nodded and went about their business. One older woman selling preserves smiled at Lyssa and said, "About time someone tamed that Thatcher boy. He is too charming for his own good." Owen bought Lyssa a jar of blackberry jam with his carefully saved coins, and she bought him a new whetstone for his knife, and they walked back through the autumn woods feeling wealthy beyond measure. The sixth Sunday, the first frost arrived. They spent the morning preparing Lyssa's garden for winter, pulling the last vegetables and cutting back the dead growth. Owen showed her how his grandmother had stored root vegetables, layering them in sand in the cellar, and Lyssa showed him the military method for preserving meat that worked even without much salt. They were a good team, she realized. His knowledge filled her gaps and hers filled his. That afternoon, sitting on her doorstep watching Ironhide graze in the weak sunshine, Owen said, "I need to tell you something." Lyssa's stomach tightened. "What is it?" "The harvest work ends in 3 weeks. The Brenners do not need hands over winter, so I will have to move on." He was looking at his hands, not at her. "There is work in the eastern valleys, winter logging that pays well. I could make enough in 4 months to have my land money by spring. But it would mean leaving. It would mean no more Sundays." She had known this was coming. Seasonal work meant seasonal workers, and Owen had never promised to stay. But knowing it and feeling it were different things, and the hollow ache in her chest threatened to steal her breath. "You should go," she managed. "You have worked too hard to lose your chance now." "I do not want to leave you," Owen said, finally looking up. His eyes were bright with frustration and something deeper. "These Sundays, Lyssa, they are the best part of my life. You are the best part, but I cannot ask you to wait for me with nothing to offer, no promise I can keep. I am still just a farmhand with dreams and savings. And I am just a veteran with a war goat," Lyssa said. "We are both trying to build something from nothing, Owen. I understand that. I do not expect you to give up your plans for me." "What if I want to?" he asked roughly. "What if I stayed here, found winter work locally, even if it pays less? I would have my Sundays with you, but I might lose months off my timeline. I might not make my land goal by spring." Lyssa reached for his hand, gripping it tightly. "I cannot let you do that. Your land is your future. I will not be the reason you lose it." "Then what do we do?" The pain in his voice mirrored her own. She did not have an answer. They sat in silence as the sun sank lower, holding hands like it could somehow be enough. That night, long after Owen had ridden away, Lyssa lay awake doing calculations. Her veteran's land grant gave her the homestead and 3 acres free and clear. She had saved a little from selling her surplus vegetables and eggs, not much, but some. Owen had his 6 years of savings, close to enough for a land lease and stock. Together, they would have enough. More than enough, perhaps, if they were careful, but that required trust, partnership, commitment. That required believing this thing between them was real and lasting, not just a season's pleasant diversion. That required risking everything on a human who might wake up one day and realize he had tied himself to an orc and regret it forever. She had charged enemy lines with less fear than she felt considering that possibility. The 7th Sunday, Lyssa made a decision. When Owen arrived, she asked him to sit at her table, and she laid out her idea like a battle plan. "I have 3 acres and a house," she said. "You have savings and skill. Together we could lease another 10 acres from the Brenner family. They have land sitting fallow that they would rent cheaply. We could run goats and sheep like you want. We could build something real, something permanent. You would not have to leave for winter work. We could start now together." Owen stared at her, his expression unreadable. "Are you asking me to partner with you?" "Yes." "To stay here, work this land, build a farm together?" "Yes." "Lyssa," he stood, pacing her small kitchen, "that is not a small thing. That is binding our futures together. That is telling everyone in this valley that we are a unit, you and me, an orc and a human. There will be talk. There will be people who hate it, who make trouble. And if it does not work, if we fail, or if we realize we cannot make it together, we will both lose everything." "I know," she said. "I am terrified, but I am more terrified of watching you ride away in 3 weeks and spending the rest of my life wondering what we could have built." He stopped pacing and looked at her, really looked, and she saw her own fear and hope reflected in his eyes. "You are serious, completely serious. We would be partners. Equal shares, equal say, equal risk." "Yes, and this is not just about the land," he said slowly, stepping closer. "This is about us, about you and me together, because I need to know, Lyssa. I need to know if you feel what I feel, if these Sundays have meant to you what they have meant to me." Lyssa stood, meeting him in the middle of her kitchen. Her heart was hammering so hard she could barely hear her own voice. "I love you," she said, the words stumbling out awkward and fierce. "I did not mean to, I did not expect to, but I love you, Owen Thatcher. I love your singing and your kindness, and the way you look at me like I am something precious. I love that you are patient and steady, and you make me laugh. I love that you won my Sundays by milking a war goat, and I love that you have spent every one of them trying to make me happy. So yes, this is about us. This is about building a life together, if you want that too." Owen closed the distance between them and kissed her, gentle and sure, his hands cupping her face like she was made of something that might break. She wrapped her arms around him and kissed him back, pouring 6 weeks of longing and hope into it, and when they finally broke apart they were both breathing hard. "I want that," Owen said against her forehead. "I want you and us, and a farm with war goats and sheep, and everything we can build. I love you, Lyssa. I think I have loved you since I first saw you scowling at me over your fence, and I absolutely loved you by the time you agreed to that ridiculous bet." She laughed, shaky and relieved, and pulled him down for another kiss. "Then we are decided. We are partners." "Partners," he agreed. "In everything." They spent that Sunday making plans. Owen would approach the Brenners about leasing their fallow acreage. Lyssa would inventory her tools and stock to see what else they needed. They would pool their resources carefully, keeping enough back for emergencies. They would start with goats because Owen knew them best, and Ironhide could serve as a breeding sire for war goat stock, which was valuable. They would plant a larger garden in the spring. They would work together and build something that belonged to both of them. By the time Owen left that evening, they had sketched out a plan for the next year, and Lyssa felt more certain of her future than she had since leaving the army. The 8th Sunday, Owen moved his few belongings into Lyssa's small house. It was not much: a trunk of clothes, his fiddle, his tools, and a box of seeds his grandmother had saved. But it made the house feel fuller, lived in like a home instead of just a shelter. They spent the day rearranging to fit 2 people instead of 1. And Lyssa found she liked having his things mixed with hers, proof that he was staying, that this was real. That night, lying together in her narrow bed, Owen sang the wordless song he had used on Ironhide, and Lyssa fell asleep feeling safe for the first time in years. The 9th Sunday, they went to the Brenners. The older couple listened to their proposal, asked shrewd questions about their plans and finances, and then nodded. 10 acres for a 5-year lease, Master Brenner said. Rent paid in trade, labor, or coin as you can manage it. You improve the land, you keep the improvements. You plant what makes sense and do not exhaust the soil. Agreed, agreed, Owen and Lyssa said together. Mistress Brenner smiled at them, warm and knowing. You will do well. You are both workers and you are both stubborn, which helps more than people think. But do not be too proud to ask for help when you need it. Farming is hard enough without trying to do it all alone. They signed the lease papers that afternoon, and Lyssa felt the world shift and settle into a new configuration. They had land. They had plans. They had each other. The 10th Sunday, the first snow fell. Owen and Lyssa spent the day insulating the stable and checking their supplies. They had enough to get through winter comfortably, though not extravagantly. In the spring, they would buy their first flock of goats, 6 does and a buck to start. For now, they had Ironhide, the chickens, and each other. Owen cooked dinner that night, a rich stew with the last of the fresh vegetables, and they ate by the fire while the snow fell softly outside. Lyssa watched him move around the kitchen, efficient and at ease, and marveled at how quickly this had become normal, how thoroughly he had woven himself into her life. "What are you thinking?" Owen asked, catching her watching. "That I am happy," she said. "That I did not think I could be after everything, but I am." He came and knelt beside her chair, taking her hand. "I am happy too, happier than I have been in years, maybe ever. You are my home now, Lyssa. Wherever we are, as long as we are together, that is home." She pulled him up and into her lap, kissing him thoroughly, and the fire crackled and the snow fell and the world outside could wait. The 11th Sunday was the winter solstice. Owen had a tradition, he said, of marking the longest night with light and music. They strung candles around the house, lit the fire high, and Owen played his fiddle while Lyssa sang along, her voice rough but earnest. They made spiced cider and sweet biscuits from their dwindling flour, and they stayed up until midnight, watching the candles burn down and talking about everything and nothing. "My grandmother used to say the solstice was about endurance," Owen said, his head resting on Lyssa's shoulder as they sat together on the floor by the fire. "The darkest night, the hardest moment, and the promise that light would return. I always liked that. No matter how hard things get, the light comes back." "I think I would have liked your grandmother," Lyssa said. "She would have loved you," Owen said with certainty. "She would have seen how strong you are and how kind under all your armor, and she would have told me I was lucky." "You are lucky," Lyssa teased. "You won me in a bet. Best wager I ever made." The 12th Sunday, Owen taught Lyssa to play the fiddle. She was terrible at it, all awkward angles and screeching strings, but Owen was patient and she was determined. By the end of the afternoon, she could play a halting version of a simple melody, and Owen applauded like she had performed a symphony. "You are mocking me," Lyssa said, laughing. "I am celebrating you," Owen corrected. "You tried something new and difficult, and you stuck with it until you succeeded. That deserves applause." She set the fiddle down and pulled him into a kiss. "You are an incorrigible optimist, and you are a beautiful pessimist. We balance each other." The 13th Sunday, they walked the full boundary of their combined land, all 13 acres, marking trees and planting improvements. Here they would put the goat pasture. There they would expand the garden. That low spot needed drainage before spring or it would flood. This south-facing slope would be perfect for the berry bushes Owen wanted to plant. They talked and planned and dreamed, and by the time they returned to the house, Lyssa felt the future spreading out before them like a map, full of possibility. The 14th Sunday, a neighbor stopped by, a sour-faced man named Harding who owned the property to the north. He looked at Owen, looked at Lyssa, and spat in the snow. "Heard you two were setting up together," he said. "Wanted to see if it was true. An orc and a human playing at farming." "That is disgusting." Lyssa felt Owen tense beside her, but she stepped forward first. "We have done nothing to you, Harding. We keep to our land and we bother no one. What we are is none of your concern." "It is when it brings down property values," Harding said. "It is when it makes decent folk uncomfortable. You should go back to your own kind, Greenskin. This valley is not for the likes of you." "I am a veteran with a legal land grant," Lyssa said, her voice cold and level. "I have every right to be here. If you have a legal complaint, take it to the magistrate. Otherwise, get off my property." Harding sneered but stepped back. "You will regret this, both of you." He left, and Lyssa let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. Owen put his arm around her shoulders. "I am sorry," he said. "For what? You did nothing." "For the fact that people like him exist, for the fact that you have to deal with that." Lyssa leaned into him. "I have dealt with worse. I fought in a war, Owen. One bitter neighbor does not scare me, but I appreciate you standing with me." "Always," he promised. "We are partners, remember. In everything." They went inside and did not speak of Harding again, but Lyssa felt the shadow of the encounter lingering at the edges of her happiness. The 15th Sunday, Lyssa woke to find Owen already up and cooking breakfast. He had made eggs and fried bread and tea, and he served it to her in bed with a flourish. "What is the occasion?" she asked, bemused. "No occasion. I just wanted to do something nice for you." He sat beside her, balancing his own plate. "You do so much, Lyssa. You work so hard. I wanted you to have a morning where someone took care of you instead." It was such a small thing, breakfast in bed, but it made her throat tight with emotion. "Thank you." They ate together, warm and comfortable, and Lyssa thought about how much her life had changed in just a few months. She had gone from solitary and wary to partnered and hopeful. She had gone from working alone to building something with someone she loved. It felt fragile still, new enough to break, but it also felt strong in a way she had not expected. After breakfast, they spent the day doing small projects around the house. Owen fixed the shutter that had been sticking. Lyssa repaired a chair with a wobbly leg. They worked in tandem, handing each other tools and talking about their plans for the spring, and the hours passed in easy contentment. That evening, as they sat by the fire, Owen pulled out a small wrapped bundle. "I made you something." Lyssa unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a carved wooden figure, a goat standing proud and fierce, every detail rendered with careful skill. It looked like Ironhide, down to the scars on his flanks and the set of his horns. "Owen, this is beautiful," she breathed. "I have been working on it in the evenings while you were asleep," he said, looking pleased and a little shy. "I wanted you to have something that reminded you of where we started, the bet, the singing, the beginning of us." She set the carving down carefully and kissed him, trying to pour everything she felt into it. "I love it. I love you, thank you. I love you too," he said against her lips. "Always." The 16th Sunday, the weather turned brutal. A blizzard rolled through the valley, dumping snow and howling wind that made it impossible to go outside. Owen and Lyssa spent the day inside, keeping the fire high and telling each other stories. Owen told her about his childhood, the mischief he had gotten into, the lessons his grandmother had taught him. Lyssa told him about her village, the other orc children she had grown up with, the reasons she had joined the army. She had never spoken about her past so openly, but Owen listened without judgment, and it felt like shedding weight she had carried too long. "Do you miss it?" Owen asked. "Your village, your people," Lyssa considered. "Sometimes, but I left for a reason. There was nothing for me there, no future I wanted. The army gave me purpose, and now this place does too. I think I am where I am meant to be. Here with me. Here with you," she confirmed and meant it down to her bones. The blizzard lasted 2 days. When it finally cleared, they dug out together, making paths to the stable and the well and clearing the roof. It was hard work, but they made a game of it, throwing snowballs and laughing like children. The 17th Sunday, they celebrated the new year. It was a quiet celebration, just the two of them, but Owen made a special dinner and they toasted their future with the last of the cider. Lyssa felt the weight of the past year lifting, all the uncertainty and loneliness, and the new year stretched ahead full of promise. "What do you want from this year?" Owen asked. "To make our farm work," Lyssa said, "to build something lasting, to be happy with you." "That is what I want too." He raised his cup. "To us and to the farm and to happiness." They drank and the new year began. The 18th Sunday, Lyssa realized she had lost count. These Sundays were no longer a prize Owen had won. They were simply their time together, as natural as breathing. She mentioned this to Owen and he grinned. "You are right. They are not one Sundays anymore. They are just our Sundays." "I like that better," Lyssa said. "So do I." The 19th Sunday, they started planning in earnest for the goats. Owen had been corresponding with a breeder 2 valleys over, and in the spring they would buy their starter flock. 6 does, a buck, all good stock. They would need better fencing, more shelter, feed for the first few months until the pasture came in. It was a daunting list, but they worked through it methodically, dividing tasks and timelines. "We can do this," Owen said, looking at their plans spread across the table. "It will be hard work, but we can do it." "We can," Lyssa agreed and believed it. The 20th Sunday, Ironhide decided he liked Owen. Lyssa was not sure what finally tipped the scales, whether it was familiarity or Owen's endless patience or just the war goat's own inscrutable logic. But when Owen entered the paddock that morning, Ironhide walked right up to him and head butted his chest gently, the goat equivalent of affection. Owen laughed in delight and scratched behind Ironhide's ears. "Finally decided I am acceptable, have you?" Ironhide snorted and leaned into the scratching, and Lyssa felt something settle in her chest. Her 2 most important males at peace with each other. It felt like a sign. The 21st Sunday, a different neighbor stopped by, an older woman named Mistress Carver who lived on the far side of the village. She brought a basket of preserves and a friendly smile. "Heard you 2 were making a go of it," she said, handing the basket to Lyssa. "Thought you might appreciate some variety in your stores. These are from my orchard, plums and pears." "Thank you," Lyssa said, surprised and touched. "That is very kind." "Not kind, just neighborly," Mistress Carver said. "We all need help now and then. You 2 seem like hard workers, and that counts for a lot around here. If you need anything, you let me know." She left, and Lyssa stared at the basket, feeling something unclench in her chest. Not everyone was like Harding. Some people were willing to judge them on their merits rather than their species. "See," Owen said gently, "not everyone is against us. I know, I just forget sometimes." "Then I will remind you," he promised. The 22nd Sunday, the cold finally broke. The sun came out strong and the snow began to melt, revealing the muddy promise of early spring underneath. Owen and Lyssa walked the land again, looking at it with new eyes. In a few weeks, they could start preparing the fields. In a month, they would bring home the goats. The future was arriving, ready or not. "Are you nervous?" Lyssa asked. "Terrified," Owen admitted. "But also excited. We are really doing this. We are making our dream real." "Together," Lyssa said, taking his hand. "Together," he echoed. The 23rd Sunday, Owen started singing to Ironhide again, for no reason except that he felt like it. He sang while he mucked the stable, while he fixed the fence, while he hauled water. Ironhide followed him around like a puppy, and Lyssa watched from the doorway, smiling. She was happy. Genuinely, deeply happy. It still surprised her sometimes, the realization that this was her life now. Not just surviving, not just enduring, but actually living. Loving and being loved, building something good, planning a future she wanted. When Owen noticed her watching, he changed his song to something romantic and silly, serenading her with exaggerated passion until she was laughing so hard she had to sit down. "You are ridiculous," she called. "You love me anyway," he called back. "I do," she said, and it was the truest thing she knew. The 24th Sunday, a letter arrived from the goat breeder. The kids had been born early and they were ready to travel. If Owen and Lyssa wanted their flock, they could come collect them in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. That was faster than they had planned, but they had their fences ready, their shelter prepared. They could make it work. "Are we ready for this?" Lyssa asked, holding the letter. Owen took her hand, squeezing gently. "We are. We have worked hard, we have planned well, and we have each other. We are as ready as we will ever be." She nodded, pushing down the flutter of nerves. "Then we do it." "Then we do it," he agreed. The 25th Sunday, they took inventory of everything one last time. Feeds, shelter, fencing, tools. They had what they needed. It would be tight, but they would manage. That night, lying in bed, Lyssa said, "What if we fail?" Owen rolled to face her, his expression serious in the dim light. "Then we fail together and we figure out what comes next. But Lyssa, I do not think we will fail. I think we are going to work hard and build something amazing. I think we are going to have a good life here, you and me and our goats." "You are an optimist," she said, but she was smiling. "And you are a realist who keeps me from floating away on dreams. We balance each other, remember." She kissed him, slow and sweet. "I remember." The 26th Sunday, they borrowed the Brenner's wagon and made the trip to collect their goats. It was a long day's travel each way, but the breeder was as good as his reputation. The 6 does were healthy and well-tempered. The buck was young but showed good lines. Owen inspected them with knowledgeable eyes, asking questions and nodding at the answers. Lyssa watched him negotiate, confident and fair, and felt proud. They loaded the goats carefully and started the journey home. It was slow going, stopping regularly to let the animals rest and drink. By the time they reached the homestead, it was late evening and everyone was exhausted. But they got the goats settled in the prepared shelter, gave them food and water, and stood together watching their new flock adjust to their new home. "We did it," Owen said, his arm around Lyssa's waist. "We have our farm." "We have our farm," Lyssa repeated and let herself believe it. The 27th Sunday, they spent the day learning the goats' personalities. Owen had a gift for it, quickly determining which does were leaders, which were shy, which were troublemakers. Lyssa watched and learned, taking notes in the little book she had started keeping for farm records. The buck, whom Owen named Braveheart, was bold and curious. The does ranged from placid to feisty. Together they made a good herd, and with Ironhide watching over them from the next paddock, they settled in quickly. "This is going to work," Lyssa said that evening, watching the goats through the stable window. "I know," Owen said, and he sounded certain. The 28th Sunday, disaster struck. Lyssa woke to frantic bleeding and found one of the does down, clearly in distress. Owen was already there, talking softly, examining her. "She is sick," he said grimly. "I do not know with what. We need to isolate her, keep her warm, see if we can bring down whatever this is." They moved the sick doe into a separate stall, wrapped her in blankets, tried to get her to drink water with herbs mixed in. Owen sat with her through the night, singing softly, while Lyssa checked the other goats for symptoms. By morning, the doe was worse, and by midday she was dead. Lyssa found Owen in the stable, sitting beside the dead animal, his face gray with exhaustion and grief. "I am sorry," she said, kneeling beside him. "You did everything you could." "It was not enough," he said roughly. "She was so young, she should have lived." "Sometimes things die," Lyssa said gently, thinking of all the death she had seen in the war. "It is not your fault. You gave her every chance." Owen leaned into her, and they sat together in the quiet stable, mourning their first loss. They buried the doe that afternoon under the oak tree by the paddock. Owen said a few words, his voice thick, and Lyssa held his hand. It was a hard lesson that farming meant loss as well as growth, death as well as life. But they would learn it together. The 29th Sunday, they checked the remaining goats obsessively. All 5 does and the buck were healthy, showing no signs of whatever had taken their herd mate. Slowly, the fear receded, replaced by cautious relief. "We will be more careful," Owen said. "We will watch them closer, learn the signs earlier. We will not lose another." "We will do our best," Lyssa corrected gently. "But we cannot control everything, Owen. Sometimes loss happens." He nodded, accepting the wisdom even if he did not like it. "I know, but I can still try." "Then we will try together," she said. The 30th Sunday, spring arrived in earnest. The snow was gone, the ground was thawing, and the air smelled of new growth. Owen and Lyssa started preparing the garden, turning the soil and planting their crops. The goats grazed in their paddock, content and healthy. Ironhide had accepted his role as guardian of the herd with dignified grace. The farm was coming to life. "Look at what we have built," Owen said, standing at the edge of their land with Lyssa beside him. "In just a few months we have made this real. We have a home, a farm, a life together. I am so proud of us." "So am I," Lyssa said. "So am I." The 31st Sunday, Owen proposed. It was not dramatic or elaborate. They were sitting on the doorstep after a long day of planting, dirty and tired and happy, and he turned to her and said, "Marry me." Lyssa blinked. "What? Marry me?" he repeated. "I know we are already partners in every way that matters, but I want it to be official. I want everyone to know that you are mine and I am yours, that we chose each other and we are building this life together forever. So marry me, Lyssa Emory. Make me the happiest man in this valley." She stared at him, her heart hammering. Marriage was not something she had ever thought about, not something she had imagined for herself. But looking at Owen, at his hopeful expression and the love shining in his eyes, she could not imagine saying anything but yes. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I will marry you." Owen whooped and pulled her into a kiss that tasted like dirt and joy, and Lyssa laughed against his mouth, dizzy with happiness. They were married 3 weeks later, on a bright spring morning in the village chapel. Mistress Carver stood witness, along with the Brenners and a handful of other neighbors who had proven themselves friendly. The ceremony was simple, the vows traditional, and when the officiant pronounced them married, Owen kissed Lyssa like he would never stop. Afterward, there was a small celebration at the Brenners' house, with food and music and dancing. Owen played his fiddle and Lyssa danced with him, awkward but joyful, and no one stared or whispered. They were simply celebrating, happy for the newlyweds. As the sun set, Owen and Lyssa walked home together, hand in hand, husband and wife. "How does it feel?" Owen asked. "The same," Lyssa said, "but also different, more solid somehow, more real." "I know what you mean." He squeezed her hand. "We are really married, you are my wife." "And you are my husband," Lyssa said, testing out the word. It fit, strange and perfect at once. They reached their homestead, their farm, their home, and Ironhide greeted them from the paddock with a dignified nod. The goats bleated cheerfully. The chickens were settling in for the night. Everything was peaceful and right. Owen pulled Lyssa into his arms, holding her close. "I love you. I love our life. I love everything we have built and everything we will build." "I love you too," Lyssa whispered. "Thank you for milking my war goat. Thank you for winning my Sundays. Thank you for staying. Thank you for letting me," Owen said. Then, softly, he started to sing. The same wordless melody he had used that first day, gentle and soothing, wrapping around them both like a blessing. Lyssa closed her eyes and listened, safe in her husband's arms, surrounded by the life they had made together. She was home. She was happy. She was loved, and that, she thought, was everything she had ever needed. The months that followed were full of work and growth. The garden flourished under their care, yielding vegetables enough to eat and to sell. The goats thrived, and by midsummer 3 of the does were pregnant. Ironhide sired strong kids with good temperaments, and other veterans began to inquire about purchasing breeding stock. The farm was succeeding beyond their early hopes. Owen and Lyssa settled into married life with the same easy partnership they had always shared. They worked together, ate together, slept tangled in each other's arms. They argued sometimes about small things like where to plant the squash or how much to charge for a breeding, but they always talked it through and found compromise. They were a team in every sense. Harding, their unpleasant neighbor, tried once more to cause trouble. He complained to the village council that having an orc in the valley was dangerous and unnatural. The council listened politely, then pointed out that Lyssa was a decorated veteran with a legal land grant, married to a well-liked man, causing no problems and contributing to the local economy. The complaint was dismissed, and Harding retreated, bitter but defeated. Other neighbors continued to be kind. Mistress Carver became a regular visitor, bringing preserves and gossip and friendly advice. The Brenners treated them like family, celebrating their successes and offering help during difficult times. Slowly, Lyssa began to feel like she belonged, not just to the land but to the community. By autumn, the 3 pregnant does gave birth to 7 kids total. Owen was beside himself with joy, caring for the babies with devoted attention. Lyssa watched him sing to them, patient and gentle, and thought about the future they were building. "You want children?" she asked one evening, the question surprising them both. Owen looked up from the kid he was bottle feeding. "With you?" "Obviously with me," he smiled, slow and warm. "I do. Someday, when we are more settled, when the farm is stable, I would love to have children with you, Lyssa. Little ones with your strength and my ridiculous optimism." "They would be half orc," she said quietly. "People would judge them." "People judge everything," Owen said. "But they would be ours, and we would love them, and we would teach them to be strong and kind and true to themselves. That is all any parent can do." Lyssa nodded, feeling something settle in her chest. "Someday, then." "Someday," he agreed. Winter came again, their second winter together, and it was gentler than the first. They had better supplies, better preparation, and the confidence of experience. The goats wintered well, staying healthy and content. Owen taught Lyssa more fiddle, and she taught him the card games she had learned in the army. They read books borrowed from Mistress Carver and told stories by the fire and made love while the snow fell outside. On Sundays, they still made a point of spending time together, just the two of them, even though every day was shared now. Sometimes they walked the land, checking fences and dreaming of improvements. Sometimes they went to the village for supplies and gossip. Sometimes they simply sat by the fire and talked, remembering where they had started and marveling at where they had arrived. "Do you remember the bet?" Lyssa asked one Sunday, as the second winter thawed into their second spring. "Of course," Owen said. "You bet me I could not milk Ironhide. I did it singing and won your Sundays." "You won much more than that," Lyssa said softly. "You won my heart, my trust, my future." Owen pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "And you won mine, best wager either of us ever made." By their second spring together, the farm was thriving. They had 12 adult goats now, plus the kids from last year who were growing fast. They had expanded the garden, planted an orchard of young fruit trees, and built a proper barn to replace the old stable. They had savings in the bank and a waiting list for their breeding stock. They had built exactly what they had dreamed of, a life that was peaceful and productive and theirs. One warm afternoon, Lyssa was working in the garden when she heard singing. She looked up to see Owen in the paddock with Ironhide, serenading the old war goat while he brushed his coat. The goat stood perfectly still, eyes half closed, content as a cat in sunshine. Lyssa straightened, one hand on her lower back, and watched them. Her husband and her first companion, at peace in the home they had all built together. The singing drifted over the spring air, wordless and lovely, and she felt her throat tighten with emotion. This was everything she had never known she wanted. A home, a partner, a purpose that filled her heart instead of just her time. Peace after years of war. Love after years of loneliness. A future that stretched out bright and full of possibility. Owen glanced over and saw her watching. His song shifted to something playful, and he beckoned her over with exaggerated gallantry. Lyssa laughed and went to him, leaving her gardening behind, and he swept her into a ridiculous, spinning embrace that made Ironhide snort disapprovingly. "What are you doing?" she asked, laughing. "Dancing with my beautiful wife on our farm on a perfect spring day," Owen said. "What else would I be doing?" He spun her again, still singing, and Lyssa gave in and danced with him, there in the paddock with the goats watching and the sun warm on their shoulders. She was happy. She was home. She was exactly where she belonged. When the song ended, they stood together, foreheads touching, breathing in tandem. "I love you," Lyssa said. "I love you too," Owen replied. "Always." Ironhide head butted Owen's leg, demanding attention, and they both laughed. Some things never changed. The war goat was still a jealous bastard, but he was their jealous bastard, and that made all the difference. Lyssa looked around at their farm, at the life they had built from a ridiculous bet and a half-filled pail of milk. She thought about the Sundays that had started as a prize and become simply their time together, sacred and unquestioned. She thought about the future, about the children they might have someday, about the years ahead of work and love and growth. And she thought about how it had all started with Owen singing to a war goat, patient and unafraid, offering her something she had not known she needed. A chance, a partnership, a home. The sun moved lower toward the hills, painting everything gold. The goats grazed peacefully. The garden grew green and strong. And Owen started singing again, just because he felt like it, his voice wrapping around Lyssa like a promise kept. She listened, standing in the doorway of the home they shared, and smiled. This was her life now. This was their life, built together one Sunday at a time, one song at a time, one choice at a time. And it was absolutely, perfectly enough.